I think we'll just let it flow and see where it goes. But I think business coaching is good. I love that for you. Okay. I said, okay, I hope she's hitting the button. Thank you.
I did over there.
Good. I think, and I love the thing that you said where even as an individual, even if you're looking for a regular job in a traditional, you have to sell yourself. So you're not going to get away from the selling. So just because I like that, I'll bring that up. But 12.
Record. So we're recording on all.
Okay, we have
3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Coach World.
Sorry. Got it.
Hi, this is Coach World TV. I'm Laurie Lawson, and my guest tonight is Ceniza. Levine, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's like Caroline is a career coach. Oh my goodness, I could spend the whole show giving you her credentials. She's a stand-up comedian. She's the co-founder of a fantastic business called Six Figure Start. She's an author. She's a regular, she doesn't want me to say regular, but she appears a lot on Fox News, sometimes on CNN. I mean, she's just got a whole bunch of credentials going on here. So we're going to pick her brain as fast as we can for the next 28 minutes. So welcome.
Thank you.
And I think we want to know, in addition to the diversity of your career, it's like, what on earth got you on this path? How did you get to being a coach?
Yeah, so Six Figure Start was founded in 2008 by myself and my business partner, Connie Thanasola-Sriracho. We actually worked together over 20 years ago as recruiters. So we were recruiting colleagues, and that's really the genesis of Six Figure Start, that we are recruiters who bring the employer's perspective to the hiring process to the actual job candidate and the person managing their career. So we knew each other for over 20 years. A few years, let's see, 2006, we got together, wanted to work together. We could see that the market was getting soft and that recruiting probably wasn't going to be interesting for a while, which was true given the recession. And so we launched Six Figure Start, again, to focus on the coaching aspect.
So in 2006, before we all figured it out in 2008, when everything came down on our heads, you were saying, you know what, we're going to need something to...
Well, the market was really frothy, and I just thought, this is not sustainable. So you talked about the diversity of things that I do. So one of the things that I do is I'm an investor, and so I was looking at the market again, didn't think it was sustainable. So Connie and I talked about, well, what does this mean then for hiring? And what's going to happen is there isn't going to be hiring, but people are going to still care about their careers from a different perspective, and that's exactly what happened. So in 2008, it was a great time to be in the career coaching side of things because people were scared and confused and anxious about the market and thinking about their careers.
Wow. Well, okay, we're going to add soothsayer to her to her credentials. You foresaw the future, but that's interesting because that's when I sort of switched my career also in coaching, because it was like, wow, there were so many people wandering around out there going either downsized or fearing downsize, or suddenly, I think, saying, oh my God, the rules have changed. I don't know how to play this game anymore. So is that what the basis of Six Figure Start is?
Yeah, so when we say bring the employer's perspective to the job seeker, it's because knowing how to get a job is very different than knowing how to do a job, right? So you can be, it's the same idea behind, you can be a great driver, but you still have to pass the road test. So the skills that are required to get noticed, to get hired, to get promoted, to get the raises that you deserve, these are different and separate skills than to be a great marketer or salesperson or production person or coach or whatever it is that you do technically.
So that's what you're bringing to the table, or that's what you're helping when people bring their problems to the table.
Because we have hired thousands of people, and so we have been in that process, and we've seen what employers are looking for. We've seen how the process works, how job descriptions get set up, and how searches get launched, why people get called in, why people get through the process, and again, after they get to wherever they're hired, you know, why do they get promoted? Why do people get raises and get the plum assignments, and some people don't?
we were talking earlier, and I was saying, well, a lot of people want the traditional job because they hate that marketing selling thing. And Caroline said, well, that's you definitely are out there selling yourself when you're looking for a job. It's like you're going to sell one way or another. So you were refining their selling skills.
Absolutely. I think this is why this job market is so difficult for folks. I do think that people became the traditional 9-to-5 professional because they didn't want to hang out a shingle and they didn't want to sell. But if you look at what is happening with job search, you have to do the kind of networking, personal branding, the marketing that an entrepreneur does. You have to sell to folks. You have to sell to the employer what your value proposition is, what you're going to be adding to their bottom line, and very much like an entrepreneur has to. And so that you are essentially doing the same things. And I have to say, I always called myself a reluctant entrepreneur because I didn't think that I wanted to start a business. But the reality was, again, we could see a softening in the market, and Kai and I wanted to work together. And we wanted to create something, and we both could see the market changing in this way and saying, you know, if I'm going to have to do all of these things anyway, I want to do it for myself.
For yourself, absolutely, yeah. So what you're saying is that you brought your experience, your 20 years of experience, and you said, okay, this is going to give you a fast start. This is going to even the ground. I mean, what kind of people come to you? Is it like somebody just, when you think of start, you think of, okay, I'm out of college. Where am I going now? And I know you do some recruiting for college,
absolutely,
right?
And that's actually why we named the firm Six Figure Start, was because initially we were focusing on that very specific right out of school market, because we felt like there was already an established market of executive coaches. When people think of coaching, it's at the upper echelons and someone's already quite senior. And at the same time, you have athletic coaches, you have tutors, you have college admissions coaches, but who's going to help with that campus recruiting, that internship process, that first job? So we called ourselves Six Figure Start because we were looking at that early part of the career. And then, you know, even just a year into it, and again, I think part of this is the recession and it impacted everyone, we were getting inquiries from folks in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who are saying, do you only work with people in your 20s? And so, in fact, more of our clients now are trending older. And what I would say is, I think what they all have in common is that they're going through a change of some kind, right? So it might be a job search where it's, hey, I like what I'm doing, but I want to do it somewhere else, or I might be downsized or restructured out of my current role. Many times I work with folks who want to do something else, and they either know what they want to do and they just want to figure out, well, how do I get from being a marine biologist to being a stockbroker, which is what Stephanie, our producer, had asked, right? So how do you do that?
How do you do that?
Or it might be, I'm a marine biologist, that's all I know, and I know that I want to do something else, but I'm not quite sure what that is. And sometimes the answer is entrepreneurship. So sometimes I will help people who have been the traditional employee become an entrepreneur.
Okay. So let's get down to tips. Let's tell them something they don't know. What are some of the preliminary steps that people should take? I mean, most of us became coaches, but in my world, because it was like, oh, we can make $1 million in our pajamas on the phone. This is great. Nobody told us that, you know what, first you have to get the clients, then you can do all that. So what are some of the preliminary things? Because it sounds great, I want my own business, but it's not for everybody. And how can people weed themselves in or out of that whole?
So I think if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, whether it's as a coach or as a florist or massage therapist or whatever it is, your primary job is going to be sales and marketing. So it is not going to be coaching. I spend a lot more of my time selling and marketing than I do coaching. And so I think for people who want to go into business to do more of, say, coaching, you know, look at traditional employment before you look at entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship comes with a whole other set of responsibilities than doing the actual job. You're going to have to do the actual job, plus, again, you're going to have to sell, you're going to have to brand yourself, you're going to have to do the finance and accounting and the operations and the technology and all of that. So be clear about why you're going into business. I think the other thing that people need to be very clear about are the numbers. And I just mean to get realistic about how are you going to fund this business. Now, for a lot of folks, you're not, say, opening a restaurant or a store where you're going to have to sign a lease and you can say, oh, it's going to cost me X dollars per month. You're thinking, I'm a coach, I'm going to be in my pajamas, I already pay for my phone. But someone needs to pay for you to live unless you're living with your parents or something. I mean, you do have expenses, even if they are not business expenses. You still have your household expenses and your living expenses. And you have to think about, how am I going to cover that? Because I'm going to be spending a lot of time selling and marketing my business as well as doing the coaching. And so I always remind people, cash is king or queen or jack or spades, everything. You know, cash flow is where it's at in business. And you want to make sure that you have whatever you need to cover yourself until your business gets traction. Connie and I had a combined 40 years of corporate experience. We had a lot of contacts. And I can tell you that our first year, we made, I want to say, 20% of what our corporate salaries were.
Get ready for that. Yes.
So and part of that was intentional because we were building a brand and we did a lot of, I don't get paid when I'm on CNN or when I'm on Fox Business, but those things were important to do. So it was important to do certain pro bono speaking, media appearances, consulting assignments with influential people and organizations who could give us some credibility. So there were things that we needed to do to invest in the business. That, of course, didn't take away from the fact that I have 2 kids and a family, so all of that.
They like to eat,
you know, don't want to run around naked and hungry and homeless. So
I love that idea because even those of us proficient in budgeting and financing, and we all go, okay, I can, for 20 clients, then I can do this. But it's like you're not. It's not only the 20. You do have to invest a lot of time in getting it started, and you're not getting paid for that. So if you can fit in 20 clients, great. But you might have to do with less.
Yeah, I did a talk recently for a group of entrepreneurs, and it was all about the difference between revenue and cash flow. So people don't recognize that revenue is great, you know, and you can sell, say, a speaking engagement for, I don't know, several thousand, several hundred, whatever it is. You sell something, you're going to do it 6 months from now. Well, what's going to happen between now and 6 months from now? Multiply that by a number of different projects that you're working on, and you can see that, again, you still have to cover whatever it is that you're doing now. And so that's the way you need to think. So you need to know why you're going into business, because you're going to be in sales regardless of why you went into business, and then actually run the numbers and know how you're going to cover.
It just burst so many bubbles, that sales thing. Oh my.
You know, when I hear, you know, and I've heard people who are coaches, who are consultants, and will say, I don't do sales.
Right.
You know, and I'm thinking, well, okay, I mean, you know, sure, there comes a time, and I've met people who can get referral after referral, but even that eventually, that dries up. Because if you think about, when I think about Connie and I, we absolutely got our first clients from people who knew us from before. But then if you want to build a lasting business that's different from what you did before, people have to know you for what you're doing right now. And so eventually you're going to have to talk to people who don't know you. And that's the only way you're going to really grow and be sustainable.
That's called sales. Sorry. So you mentioned branding. Now, speak to me of branding. It's a hot topic, and everybody thinks they sort of know. It's like, okay, Kleenex. It's a tissue. We got it. What do people need to do in order to brand? And I think you've touched on some of that, but how important is it?
Well, it's very important because whether or not you control it, you have a brand. So at the simplest
you
level,
may as well control it. Yeah.
I mean, people will think of Laurie Lawson. Something will come to their mind.
Right.
You know, and it might be based on what your previous career was before you became a coach. They might know you as, oh, she was the person who did X. It might be, oh, they know you as a coach. They might know you from the TV show. And so everyone's going to have a different perception. But the point is that they're going to have a perception whether or not you put something out there. So the idea of branding is to try to control that perception, or try to at least put forth what you want people to know about you. And so I had 15 plus years of business consulting and recruiting, and that's what people knew about me. But I wanted people to think of me as a go-to person for career coaching and leadership development and for being an entrepreneur. And so I had to do things like change my social media platform, change my profile on LinkedIn, change the way I engaged in Facebook and in Twitter, change the way I networked. So it's not all about social media. There's also offline. We actually still talk to people.
Not as much, but not as much, but still.
Yes, we still do, right?
It's an art we have to cultivate.
It's thinking about, I was for a long time in management consulting, financial services, media. I was part of those networks. Well, now I'm part of entrepreneur networks, and I'm part of executive professional networks, because these are people that might hire me, right? And so I want to be in and around those groups. And so thinking about both offline and online, how do people know you? How do you engage with people? What do they know you for? That's branding.
Okay. I had told Caroline that it's like, oh, I don't tweet. I know I should. Blah, blah. And I said, is there really any value? And she said to me, why not?
Well, it depends on your business, right? So I'm not going to say that you need to do social media for the sake of doing social media. I'm also not going to say you need to join a professional association or you need to go to a conference if you are not that type of person. That being said, a lot of business is transacted via social media, via networking, via conferences. So if you are someone who shies away from any number of those things, you're just missing out on a very powerful tool that you could be using. And the thing about social media is that a lot of people use it, and it's free for the most part. I mentioned that I do use certain applications and tools where you have to pay a nominal fee to make it easier, say, to track your tweets and your followers and all that, but you don't have to do that. You can be on these platforms really for free. You don't have to do ads or anything like that. But if you don't do that, it says, you're walking away from that potential audience. And frankly, because so many more people are using it and engaging that way, it does make a statement around, well, when are you going to join the rest of the world? Are you still using an abacus or a VCR?
Or do you have a cell phone? Yes.
At some point, it's like, okay.
Well, I think we were trying to figure out how do we get together, and it was like, well, we both are so all over the place. It's like we know we have a friend, and then it hit us. It's like, okay, that's how. But you're right. I mean, it could have been Twitter. It could have been, not me, but it could have been Facebook. It could have been anything. And the more you expand your exposure, then the more your name is going to be heard.
Right, because the audience is using these tools. I've had so many people who will say to me, I've seen you, can't quite remember where, but I've seen you.
Right.
And there's so much noise out there. I mean, you know that just in terms of TV and all of the advertising and print media and, of course, social media. And so people are bombarded by impressions. And so if you can put yourself out there in different media, it's only going to help you.
Speak to me of websites and blogs. Are both necessary? Are either necessary?
So again, I mean, I think that if you start a business, is the first thing that you should do a website? No, because
that's always the first thing that everybody does. So
just like
that's
business
the business
cards,
right?
They
have perfect business cards. No business, but I got the card.
No, we don't have to get fancy business cards. We don't have to get a fancy website. I am not a tech person. I built our first website. It was awful, but I built our first website just so that if people did look for me, there would be something there, and it was more like an online business card, basically.
Exactly.
Where it just has, kind of name, rank, and serial number. But eventually, again, the website's a great tool. I can point people to the website and say, look, there's a free resources tab, and there are a number of different ways to engage with us before they have to buy anything. Right? And so people can really get to know both me and Connie. We write frequently. We have a radio show. We do media appearances. We do live events. And so people can see us in different media. We can capture that on our website. So it's a great tool. It's not something that you have to have as you're starting, because most people who will hire you will be people who know you already from some other thing. But if you don't have a site, again, what are you going to point people to?
Good point. Now, I noticed on your website there's something they can get for free, and it's What is
Yeah,
that?
so there are a lot of things you can get for free. So again, the free resources tab. One is, I think the biggest thing that people see, because it's on the homepage, is a list of interview questions that that Connie and I developed that we use with our own clients when we're prepping them for interviews. And you might think, oh, but I want to start my own coaching business, or I want to start my own business. I don't need these interview questions. Well, a lot of them are general exploratory questions around what, who you are, what you do, what your background is, which you are really going to need to know regardless of what it is that you do. And so that's something that people can get. They'll get then our newsletter, which comes out twice a month with tips and strategies. Our blog is free. So you had asked actually before about a website and a blog. So our blog is part of the website. It is a series of articles, essentially, and we choose to focus our blog on career issues. So it's job search, it's career management, it's entrepreneurship, it's leadership development, but it's all around that career space. I've also blogged, for other outlets. I'm blogging for something called Purple Clover, which is a lifestyle site for over 40, and I'm the featured career expert, so I'll blog about careers, but on Purple Clover itself, there are blogs about lifestyle, relationships, personal finance, entertainment, etc. I blog for Life Reimagined. So I'm part of the Life Reimagined for Work session. Again, I am the career person, but they've got other things on the site.
So it's all the connections. Well, I would recommend that everybody go to her website as soon as the show's over, which is www, of course, sixfigurestart.com.
Yes.
Right. And check on the free
free
resources tab.
Right. So there's the blog, there's the newsletter. I actually have an audio on there for entrepreneurs. So I did a workshop around, because I had so many people ask about how we grew to a multiple six-figure business. How did we do that? Because we were both longtime corporate people.
Yeah.
And we were both not people who said, oh, I definitely want to be an entrepreneur. So it was a lot of trial and error. So I outlined the 5 strategies that I felt were most effective for us. I'm not suggesting that's going to be effective for everybody, but a lot of people ask, how did you do it in just a few years? And so that's how we did it.
Wow. Tell me the title of your book. I love the title of your book.
Yeah, so I've actually worked on 2 books. Connie and I have put out a textbook that's actually used at universities. It's actually based on a process that we use with all of our clients, and mostly our senior clients, but we wrote this as a textbook that's been adopted. It's called 6 Steps to Job Search Success. So it's the 6 steps that people need to follow to get their ideal job. But I've also been a part of a project, it's an anthology called How the Fierce Handle Fear.
Love that title.
So Secrets to Succeeding in Challenging Times. And I wrote the chapter on fear and career change.
Ah, nice. So how do the fierce handle fear?
Well, if you read, Donald Trump contributed a chapter as well, and if you read his chapter, he doesn't have any fear. Well. So that would be one way, right, of overcoming the fear would be just not to have any.
Or not acknowledging it anyway.
But for me, I wrote about fear and career change. I am very risk averse. I have a lot of fear. So I'm on the opposite. I have a lot of fear. And I actually wrote about my career change, where I went from being a high-flying, very respectable, 6-figure business consultant to being an actor. I always say that I went from 6 figures to 3 figures my first year as an actor. It was really negative if you think about the photos and the classes and all of that.
3-figure was the good week.
Yeah. Right. The good year.
The good year. I'm sorry. The good year.
So clearly I was doing other things.
Yes.
But I talked about that process, and I basically talked about 3 things, 3 strategies that I used, and one was run the numbers. So I alluded to this before, but I think a lot of people have fear around these amorphous issues, like I'm going to be starving or I'm going to make it big in 3 months, and either side is not realistic.
It's funny, I'm going to give myself 6 months and then I'll be a star. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so I actually ran the numbers. So for a while that I had my terrific job, I was trying to live like I didn't have it. And to really get a very real sense of, well, what can I live without, and how is this going to work, and all of that. Because I actually had one of my 2 kids at the time that I was going to make this transition. So run the numbers is one. And then the second strategy I talk about is called change at the fringes. So it's this idea that if you think about a rug with fringes, you want to change as little as possible. You want to change on the outside before you change anything big. And so that means that before you quit your job, you start your business. Or in my case, I took acting classes, I went on auditions, and you burn the candle at both ends for a while. Till you know for sure that this is something that you want to do. Sometimes you do things and it's like, whoa, I didn't want to do that. For a long time I thought I wanted to sew, and I would look at these, Martha Stewart magazines, and I'd be like, that could be me. And then I took a sewing class and I was like, whoa, okay, I have never.
It's so not me.
Yeah, I've never looked back. I just said, no, nice picture, next, next. So, you want to, before you do anything big, you want to change all the little things. And then the final thing, though, I call it join the circus. Because at some point, you will have to do the thing that people will say, Caroline has gone crazy and joined the circus, right?
Yes.
She left this job and she is, what? She's an actor? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yes.
But that's what you do. At some point, you have to do it. And it's not going to seem crazy to you, but you have to steel yourself and prepare yourself for having a lot of people around you who are going to be like, whoa, what are you smoking?
Well, you've got to realize there are so many people out there aspiring to what you're giving up, and it's like, really? It's like,
well, what I have found, though, I mean, years into this journey, because I did the acting thing in the early 2000s, so I'm 10 years past that now, but, and then entrepreneurship, and I'm still reinventing myself. I find that a lot of people aspire to do exactly what I'm doing now, which is carving out the life that I want. And people will say that it's the crazy thing, but then they'll pull you aside and be like,
How'd you do it?
Yes, how did you do it? I want to do that.
I want to do this.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm happily married. I have 2 amazing kids, a large family. We have, we're just, everything's just great. You don't have to have a traditional 9-to-5 job. I also know people who have all of that great stuff and a traditional corporate job. So, but there are many ways to skin this cat. It might be acting, it might be entrepreneurship.
Whatever. Do you think at some point you actually have to take that leap of faith without actually, like as the Martin Luther King thing is, faith is taking the next step even though you can't see the full staircase?
Well, I think this is what's so hard about this economy. I think that everybody has to take this leap of faith. I think that, even 10 years ago, there was this notion that it's the entrepreneurs who take the risk. But, you can be in a corporate job and you can be working for Enron or Lehman Brothers.
Right.
Or,
with one of those stable banks.
Number of these firms that just, disappear through no fault of your own, or one of the nonprofits that was funded by, some of Madoff's, money that he was managing. And so things can just disappear from under you, and you're not thinking you're taking on this risk, but you are. So I do think that we're all working on faith. That either that your employer is doing the right thing, that you're doing the best that you can, that you're building the business as quickly and as profitably as you can. So
something great to remember when you're feeling complacent. I have to tell you, we're out of time.
Oh.
I told you we'll go fast. So I want to thank you so much. As you can tell, she's a very busy lady. So to take this 28 minutes, and we've been doing a little prep, I thank you so much for being on the show, and I think we want to have you back. You have such great information.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that is good. You
Thanks.
are good.
Great.
Just at that, and then it changed.
Yeah, I hope so. Even we're really looking stupid right now.
So informative because, oh my God.
Isn't she amazing?